Bunch of Thoughts by M.S. Golwalkar. The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or more commonly called RSS, was started in 1925 on the day of Vijayadashami. The founder, Revered Dr. Keshav Baliram Hegdewar, passed away in 1940. Sri Madhav Sadashiv Golwalkar, popularly known as Guruji, has been the chief of the organization since then. The year 1965 therefore marked the completion of 40 years of Sangh and 25 years of its leadership by Sri Guruji. The present attempt to collect some of his thought has made us feel like picking pebbles on the shore of ocean. The impossibility of compressing in a single handy volume the various thoughts that he has expressed over the last 25 years in thousands of his speeches. Talk, discussions, and informal chit chat over a wide range of national topics is obvious. What is attempted here is just to present his viewpoint on various topics. With this end in view, some of his ideas are strung together under different heads. We do not claim any systematic representation, such less a thorough and exhaustive exposition of topic under each head. Moreover, most of his speeches are in Hindi. The force and diction of his chaste Hindi and the inspiring image they bring up are bound to suffer while rendering them into other languages, especially to a foreign tongue. Naturally, the idea contained herein are his, but the words are ours. As such, we are keenly aware of the shortcoming of these words and expression. Burdened though with all such anxieties, what made us to take up this task is the confidence that the radiance of his thought will outshine all these dark spots and illumine the national mind. The greatest single factor, however, that has contributed to the happy conception of his this task is the loving and the wise guidance of the late Professor M.A. Venkata Rao, a reputed thinker, author, journalist, and a philosopher in the truest sense of the term. The relations he had with Sri Guruji were not only of utmost affection and respect but extended to their complete identity in view regarding our national affair. Professor M.A. Venkata Rao had gone through every page of the first manuscript that was not ready as early as 1960. He made suitable correction and offered valuable suggestion. More than all, he blessed our effort by writing the invaluable introduction, though the original manuscript was again supplemented with some more fresh idea of Sri Guruji. The introduction that the late professor wrote, needless to say, is as fitting today as it was 5 years ago. The idea he has represented therein touched the eternal life spring of our nation. His depth of vision, his vast erudition, and masterly presentation are all blended in those few pages. He had a desire to write a longer introduction. With that end in view, he had once again begun going through the present manuscript even as he was lying on his sick bed in the hospital. He had even completed few chapters, but his illness suddenly took a grave turn. Just at that moment, Providence brought Sri Guruji to his bedside. 2 days later, Professor Venkata Rao passed away, leaving us his blessing and his original introduction. Now that introduction is no more a formal introduction. It is his sacred will, and the present publication itself is a fulfillment of his last wish. His persistent and compelling desire, especially during his last day, to see the life giving thought of Sri Guruji reach every heart and home as quickly as possible, rarely become a call of national duty vouchsafed to us by that great departed soul. Yes, this humble effort to ours is indeed in response to call of national duty. As the following pages will bear out the thought of Sri Guruji are proving a beacon light in the confused state of our national mind today. The crisis in our country is more intellectual and mental than physical. Whatever physical maladies are seen today ravaging our body politic have their roots in the weakness and perversion of the brain and the heart. Often this failing trot about masquerading as high ideal trying to cover up their disastrous effect. Sri Guruji idea have the intensity of warmth and light to dispel all such darkness and charge the nation mind with right vision and spirit of right action. A short pen portrait of Sri Guruji life at this juncture will help our reader to appreciate his idea better on the background of his dynamic personality. The only surviving darling son of his parents, Sri Guruji showed sign of extraordinary talent even as a boy. Later, after doing his MSc, he was for some time a professor in the Banaras Hindu University. He was the respectful called Guruji by his beloved student and epithet stuck to him in later year. But his was not the spirit to be cribbed and combined in the confines of service. He resigned and returned to Nagpur. He did his LLB but never practiced law. He had by then come under the magnetic influence of Dr. Heddevar. That was like Narendra, later on Vivekananda, meeting Sri Ramakrishna. The result was equally epoch making. Guruji resolved to lay his all at the feet of Dr. Heddevar. Never was there any place in his thinking for things like personal pleasure and family attachment. Before the blaze of his passionate idealism, the shadow of the temptation of the mundane world fled. Even to this day, his life is burning like a steady flame, lighting up the path of national reorganization, crossing all political and sectarian boundaries. There are very few great men today who have traveled throughout the length and breadth of Bharat. As often as Sri Guruji, he has constant personal contact with thousands of places and lakhs of Sangh, Seva Sangh, and others. With his fingers constantly on the nation's pulse, with his unceasing concern for the good of country, Sri Guruji is eminently the leader qualified to guide the nation, rising above the rules of position or power or personal glory. His single-minded devotion is to the nation as a whole. His utterance therefore carry the ring of naked truth. He is fearless in his espousal of the nation's cause and makes no concession to any individual or party. With this, we leave it to the discerning reader to find it the following unvarnished, undecorated presentation of Sri Guruji thought, ray of undying hope and guidance and inspiration for reader on the path of our national life mission. By a happy coincidence today, the Mega Krishna Ekadashi Vishwavasu Samvat, 16th of February 1966, when the present volume is being published, Sri Guruji enters his 61st year. Our heartfelt thanks are due to all those who loving cooperation has made this arduous though pleasant task possible. Preface to the popular edition. The first edition has also the subsequent two impression of the present book were completely sold out within a few months of their publication. Demand for more copy are continuing to pour in form all over the country and even abroad. Necessitating his fourth impression, we confidently look forward to an ever increasing appreciation of the priceless treasure of thought embodied in the book by an ever widening circle of discerning readership. We thank Miss Sharda Press Mangalore for having taken special pains to print this book within the shortest possible time. Content. Part 1, The Mission. Our World Mission. Present mental complex Hindus. The first world thought giver, the world of conflict. Theories born to root our nationalism, failure, communism in Russia, various attempts at synthesis of nation, the dilemma, our solution, inner bond for human unity, Hindus alone equipped for world mission, the first step. Challenge of the time. Birth of democracy as a reaction, evil of capitalism, next reaction, communism, falsity of its prophecy and promise. Russia, both theories shifting from original stand, both stemming from materialism, failure as a theory, wrong concept of equality, our view of individual and society man, not system, important, call for our national soul. For true national glory. 5. Live positive dynamic Hinduism. Vision of our work. Part 2, The Nation and its Problem. Our Motherland. Wanted heroic devotion. Children of Motherland. For a virally national life. Territorial nationalism. Its root, its fruit. Call for courage or conviction. Internal threat, the Muslims, the Christians, the communists. Party, the path of glory, meeting the historic need, internal basis, elixir of national life, world of reality, ultimate sanction, worshippers of victory, fight to win, right measures, right philosophy, nation of war, call of new era, meeting the challenge, part 4, molding men. The technique that succeed for true national reorganization, the right approach, efficacy of the technique, character, personal and national, be one with capital M, men with mission, the ideal incarnate. Introduction. Independent India is engaged in a many-sided renaissance and reconstruction more or less consciously directed to what may compendiously be called nation making or remarking in an image or adequate to the need of the present and future of India as strong create nation guiding the destinies of its people in accordance with the worthy and inspiring chart of life. This era commences roughly with the emergence and work of Raja Ram Mohan Roy in the beginning of last century and his continued to the present day through the life effort of notable thinker in many fields like Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, Swami Dayananda, Sri Aurobindo and Logamanya Tilak, Gandhi and Tagore, Dr. Hegdevar and Veer Sarvarkar. There are only typical names do not exhaust the galaxy. Work of sympathetic ideologists, British, French and German and of many historians, foreign and Indian like Havel and Radha Mukund Mukherjee, and the Maratha historian in particular, helped to give a more hopeful and creative role to Indian history, showing the successive epochs of Renaissance and recollection of the national soul that met the challenge of the times and re-established the supremacy of the dominant ethos again and again. The Buddhists, the Maurya, the Sangha, the Gupta, the Harsha, aged in the past, and the Vijayanagara and Maratha Sikh era in more recent history may be reckoned as much as of the national self recollection and reassertion. In the present phase of the struggle with the British power, we have a similar period of reassertion of the national self consciousness and of a conscious search for the root of our culture and the living point on which we may regret current life and foster it to vigorous growth and power. In this many sided effort, the image of Indian culture and pattern of nation building is laid over with many confused nation from the west and from distorted idea of the past our own life. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi introduced a powerful leaven into his maelstrom of idea, impulses, images having many elements congenial to the spirit of Indian culture. His fast and vows, his silence, his prayers meeting, his satyagraha all appear to have a family resemblance to the tapasya of old. Hindu spirit dormant in the educated classes and originally submerged beneath their secular education of Anglo-Indian colleges rose to the surface and hailed the political leader as a spiritual Mahatma of the authentic type of spiritual past. Thus, the national liberation movement of M.K. Gandhi derived power from the culture heritage indwelling in the subconscious mind of the people. But unfortunately, as the political motive was dominant in the Gandhian movement, the culture forces it invoked and mobilized were not grasped in their genuine purity and power and were not related naturally and originally to the idea of politics, economics, social order, and value, and the many dharma of the living past. They were all mobilized as Vagu source of the inspiration against the common enemy, namely the foreign ruler. They afforded no positive pattern of new Indian society and state, economy, and social order that was to replace the present order of things under long foreign rule. It was mainly negative. The many types of leader following the Mahatma being content to put off decisive thinking on positive line for the post liberalization. Thus, we find the Mahatma choosing a person with nothing in common with his ultimate idea of man, nation, and God, like Jawaharlal Nehru, to succeed him as the national leader. Nehru mind is made mostly abroad, and in the spite of his discovery of India, Sri Nehru never succeeded in catching the spirit of Indian culture at its best. Thus, the blueprint of the new society he is using as Prime Minister of leader of national reconstruction for the building independent India is a society, socialist pattern of society which is indefinitely more abstract and superficial, more mechanical, and charged with unsolved problem of class conflict than the foundational idea of the past. Today, we find everywhere attempt to recast our life pattern in the mold of an America, English, Russia way of life. How can we call it Swatantrata, which has no seva in it? Then it is only Paratantra. If Lenin is kept as the ideal, it becomes Lenin Tantra and not So Tantra. In fact, protection and propagation of our national life value, that is our Dharma and Sanskriti, has always been held in our historical tradition as the reason detail of Swatantrata. This is how our people are drifting under all tall talk of progress. We do not know where we are going. Is there today anything that we can be pointed out as the essence of our own national life? Our way of life, our method of education, our mode of behavior, our way of dress, our way of building houses, towns, cities, all such elements of our national ethos have undergone such a awful change that we do not stop for a moment to consider whether this urgent Imitation of others is not a humiliation of our national pride, a sure sign of losing our national identity, drifting intellectual slavery. It is this lack of positive idea of Indian society at its best, accumulated and molded through centuries of culture and civilization, that is yet alive in the subconscious of our people in all their rank. That is not disappointing in the current effort led by the government and official and authority leader of national renovation. The failure is education is the most signal indication of the grave lacuna. Indian education has some of the most creative future making for sublimate and uniform level of success in character formation, influencing life in its inmost spring. But the failure of the present leadership in this field is total in character, reveal an entire absence of any inward grasp of the spiritual climate of Indian education in its essential quality and pattern. The excessive preoccupation with the passing need of the political agitation amount for the failure to achieve a positive image of national patriotism by the Gandhian movement with sufficient depth reaching the spring of the spiritual heritage of the land. Statement may seem rather strange when applied to national liberation movement of Gandhi Nehru, but it is fact nevertheless. Failure showed itself disastrously in their dealing with the Muslim from the very beginning of the Gandhian movement after the Punjab atrocity and Amritsar and the Khilafat movement of the Ali brothers. Gandhian assumed that the Ali brother and their fellow member of the Islam were, as a matter of actual fact, adherent to Indian nationalism and were committed to India in the same sense of Hindus. Of course, they could have joined the national body on equal terms if they had wanted to, but the fact is that their leader, like Sri Said Ahmad and others of the Ali Gram movement, had developed along separate lines. They were taught to demand separate electoral with ultimate in the fullness of time led to Pakistan and the partition of the country along religious line. Failure of Indian history to assimilate the Muslim into the national society. It had succeeded in assimilating the earlier invader, the Shagas, Scythians and Hunas. Is a notable fact that the new Indian leader of the national liberation ignored altogether. They committed the blunder that they giving conscious to the Muslim at the cost of the majority. They could win them over. The sequel showed that it was a tragic blunder. No cautiousness given without change of ideology or the part of the receptions could bring out the change needed. There was a very rational and patriotic way of approach. That was to tell them frankly, dear friend, the day of the old Mughal Basha was have passed. Now both of us will have to live ultimately as brothers here, as co-share in this national life. After all, you also belong to the same race of our, to the same blood of our, but converted to Islam at the point of sword by those Mughal Turk and other foreign races. Now there is no point in your continuing to associate yourself mentally with those foreign aggressors and trying to follow their footsteps. Forget all such separate memories, merge yourself in the life of this soil. Hereafter, try to respect, follow the example of the great sons of this land who fought for the freedom and honor of our motherland and our culture. The matter would have very simple. Assimilation is possible and necessary, but it requires the right philosophy and right psychology and right strategy of tactics. But Indian leaders provide incapable of involving any such change of technique. They persisted in their colossal blunder until they had to vivisect the motherland. They retained the same blundering technique even today, are thus encouraging further Pakistan's. From another point of view, to the well Chong of National Liberation Leader have proved to negative and therefore sterile and frustrating. This concerns the right relation India under independent auspicious should envisage today modern Western civilization. It is too often forget the Hindu is not merely a sect, a small religion fellow concerned exclusively with modes of worship or social custom peculiar to it. The word Hindu in this context has a national character. It is tantamount to the word Indian, that is pertaining to a people living beside the river Sindhu. It connotes the entire culture, civilization of the Indian people from prehistoric time developed on the Indian soil through millennia. During the Gandhian era, the idea of developing a Hindu civilization stemming from the living root of the past and assimilating the best of the present Western pattern of value had the dominant place in the thought of some leader. Gandhi title book Hind Swaraj is a symptomatic of this desire, though there was no agreement on all sides with the ideal Adam Brand Adam branded therein. But today we find the alien, unassimilated, curd, class war ridden, monolithic social structure associated with the mass system is influencing the structural ideal and actual policies of the authority without any reassessment of ideas so essential to such a vast and faithful undertaking. Here too, the vacuum is a sphere of Indian culture. Idea in the mind of leader in authority is being filled up by idea and ideal unsuited to national renovation. The iconoclastic method seems to be taking the upper hand in the preference of the creative reform in both sphere, namely that of the minority assimilation into national society and that of the assimilation of the Western, both its political social philosophy and its science and technology. India need to adopt a more positive and more creative policy with a clear vision of the best future of Indian society at its best and of the enduring element of nationalism and westernism in the way just proportion of with sure insight into their human significance. It is significant that this more concrete point of view attained from the substance in the organization founded by early as 1925 by Nagpur by Dr. Hegdevar. The philosophy, history, and that is movement known as the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, literally National Volunteer Corps embodied belonged to the more positive, concrete inspiration that was so lacking in the more dominant Gandhian movement that captured the headline on account of its immediate political interest and the urgency of national liberation. In addition to the right philosophy and history of Indian culture, Dr. Hegdevar hit upon a unique method of training and young through a course of mental and physical exercise. In its combination of mind and body for training and some technique of education remained as the main feature of the Platonic system of music and the gymnastics. By music, Plato means that whole range of the art and science, history, philosophy, science, and the fine art. By gymnastic, he means physical exercise for developing a sound mind in the sound body, with health and bodily condition responding to the highest impulses of the sound, like the veena in the hands of the musician. Music must revert the body. Looking at the exercises of the young volunteer in the sun, the observer sees how closely they succeed in the realizing the ideal of Plato. Plato included courage as one of the cardinal virtue, and so too the Sung instructor stressed courage and the virtue needed for resisting wrong and aggression. The current aspiration against the RSS mostly be Congress leader and follower to the effect that it is a communal organization more dangerously to the country that even communism are a travesty of the fact. The present collection of the thought expressed by the Param Pujaniya Guruji Golwalkarji on different occasions to sung worker and public in many parts of the country over a decade and more serve to bring together the outline of the philosophy and history of Indian culture as well as the technique of nation making followed by Sangh as laid down by his founder Dr. Hegdevar. To appreciate its full role as perhaps the most influential movement of cultural reconstruction in the land today, which has spread practically to all parts of the country from the Punjab to Madras. It is necessary to eschew the petty-minded criticism of ignorant and jealous opponent that it is communal and merely Hindu is in any derogatory sense. It is based on the philosophy of national culture and envisage the whole of nation. The outlook it offer has room for all minority on the condition of their wholehearted submission to the supreme value of nation in their life. Nation is the vehicle of universal truth and it is not entity above them. This is no chauvinist nationalism of the kind associated with Mussolini and Hitler in the recent West. It teaches loyalty and devotion to the national society in the national homeland under the image of the mother. The unity and solidarity and the motherland in taught to claim the highest sacrificial devotion from the citizen today. However, enter into the spirit of devotion to the nation as a spiritual unity of land and people are Indians or Hindus in essence. The mental commitment should be final and supreme. This is quite consistent with the different group and sect retaining their own gods, worship and social custom as long as they do not conflict with social cohesion. We must review once again the Parakramavat for that we should make it clear that the non-Hindu who live here as a Rashtra Dharma, national responsibility, or Samaj Dharma, duty to the society, or Kula Dharma, duty to the ancestor, or only in his Vyakti Dharma, personal faith, he can choose any path which satisfies his spiritual urge. If even after fulfilling all these various duty in the social life, anybody say that he has studied Quran Sharif or the Bible and that the way of worship strike a sympathetic chord in his head that he can pray better thought that path of the devotion, we have absolutely no objection. Thus he has his choice in the portion of his individual life. For rest, he must be one with the national current that is real assimilation. The Muslim, Christian, and Jew, etc., have perfect upasana, swatantriya, freedom of worships, so long as they do not seek to destroy or undermine the faith and symbolism of the national society. They should subordinate their exclusive claim for final and sole revelation with the national society. They could bear witness to their faith in life and speech, but they should not indulge in any unfair and unspiritual modus of conversion. The national identity required that the whole of the national society, including minority, should share in the best value of the past. They should appreciate national dharma on code of the ethical principle and way of life enshrined in the best usage. In cultural history, they should all give their mind and heart all heartedly to an appreciation of the best type. Rama and Krishna may be appreciated by non-Hindu as secular example, while the Hindu will see them as full spiritual exemplar avatars. The national history of Muslim period should be rewritten, giving the truth without varnish, and all should appreciate the best value exemplified by the heroes of authentic history. Thus, these thoughts go on to the delineate quietly and patiently and the portrait of the best Indian society and pattern of value in all sphere of life and culture, philosophy, art and social order. The sung seek to hold before the mirror of the national mind, to see the wood in spite of the bewildering number of trees that crowd the landscape. It is necessary to see in the bird eye view the full design of the landscape, after which detail will fall into a illuminating order. Pride in the culture heritage of past is the recurring theme of lecture chapter after chapter. Point to some aspects others of the future that bear inspiring value for present emulation in social life and incarnation into individual character and personality. Enough is said to vindicate faith in the best value of inherited culture and its capacity to afford guidance even today. Philosophy, darshanas. Vedantas, the typically philosophy of Indian envisages a vision of the universe steeped in spirit, fulfilling a life of internal joy. Individual souls, as spark of such a supreme cosmic spirit, have the divine destiny of realizing universality and becoming godlike. This assure quality of spirit among all souls. With higher basis of democracy can we have than this? What greater stimulus to generosity and self sacrificing participation in the life of society? The nation is the grouping nest to family and clan and neighborhood in the service which we grow in the moral structure. All group who share in this vision and discipline can be become equal compatriot but not else. The traitor cannot be assimilated into the national until they change the spirit. Toleration, springing from understanding and sense of identity. This philosophy of eminence has introduced the Indian doctrine of toleration of all point of view, religious view, and way of life. For all are expression of the same cosmic spirit and can reach the same goal at their own space, in their own way, in accordance with their own symbol, provided they are sincere in their aspiration and effort. Errors will correct themselves in the climb. Adhikara Beda. Divergent structure due to divergent qualification is the formula that reconcile identity of goal and diversity of pathway. Social order. Such a view has involved the outline of social order in India that enables members of pass normally from step to step in the ladder of life smoothly using the experience of ages and lifting their personality to higher plane. The individual career is distinguished into the brahmacharya, garhastya, vanaprastha, sannyasa. In first, we have the student absorbing the culture heritage, assimilating truth, science, philosophy, law, and the art. The second, we have him fulfilling his duty as a member of society and head of his household. The householder pay taxes, support the state, and does charity. Second half of life prepare the individual to detach himself from the involvement of detail of existence to contemplate the internal. The value of life, including the relation of sexes in family of outside, offer a pattern that is of universal value. It helps to make the best life with enjoyment, achievement, and serenity in the perfect equinox. This is the Ashrama Dharma, whose sociological value remain for fruitful assimilation today, even in the West. Social order has another aspect, namely the duty of right to different vocational group. Sodharmas, in addition to universal value like truth speaking, non stealing, non injury, etc., Indian ethics recognize particular occasion, thinker, and men of the worship. That is free devotees of truth and God of nature or reality, warriors and administrator, executive, etc., trader and manufacturer and transporters, agriculturists and cattle trader, tenders and breeder, etc. These classes emerge in the course of social differentiation in many aggressive society. If their if their duty are laid down and social expectation are crystallized in the society so that everyone will know what is expected to him is right as well as the duty. A harmonious social order we result spontaneously. The present society will throw all career open to the talent on the basis of sodharma or duty spring from one occasion, karma and guna, character and conduct. No class war. Another advantage of the Indian view of society is that it eschews class war. It postulates social harmony as a potential, if not as a fully actual order of law and custom. Also, observance and enforcement, dharma, a determinant of the conduct of group and individual, lay down a synthesis of claiming of conflicting parties. A study of the conflict impartially from the standpoint of the service involved, the function performed in the society by the conflicting parties, will reveal the elements of truth and justice in each party claim. Dharma will come to the mean as expression and crystallization of the synthesis of interest and value revealed by the Panchayat. This is the source of the long-standing Indian faith in the Panchayat way of settling dispute. It is a democratic, scientific, and moralistic at the same times. The destructive idea of the class war or irreconcilable Antagonism between different functions and classes is therefore successfully avoided on the Indian scheme. The use of the word dharma does not preclude the inclusion of different sects and religious fellowships who may use different words of the same meaning like the Muslim and Christian. Substance of the thought and procedure and value is non-sectarian and human in the plainest sense. Thus, both from the standpoint of the philosophy of man and nature as well as from the viewpoint of social good, an Indian scheme is capable of affording a comprehensive social philosophy able to furnish a saving pattern for modern complex life. A social philosophy superior to the current violent and moody theory of Marxism and Freudianism. Indian thought to have sound notion of the role of the state as agent of common good Rajadharma, which no may be designated Rajanidhi, Rajadharma. The state should be above partial interest and should regulate all activities according to Dharma. So the state is not class agent of the upper class. According to Indian Shastras or political and social science, nor is to a exploiting agency. It is an agent of morality or dharma. It precludes socialism in the sense of adding economic to the political power. The state is not a trader or manufacturer, but is entitled to regulate all vocation. Thus, Indian idea help us to think through current conflict and social theory and arrive at a solution more satisfactory because more truly based on the wide experience and mature reflection. No doubt we may surpass the past, but only by thinking through them to new conclusion, not by the ignoring them and starting deno. Also, it is a waste of effort if you are start from the start when great ideas are to hand for the asking. It is like each scientist ignoring all previous discoveries and starting from scratch from a false notion of originality. It is not nationalism, chauvinism, but sober common sense to build on the foundation and already well and truly laid. The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh is not merely a school for teaching idea and ideals. It is a school for practical education in the character building and already mentioned the volunteer are trained in the series of camp in which thorough song participated life in common, discussion on history and national ideal and national heroes, drill and physical exercise, etc. Habit and motive of a service of the motherland and built into character. The influence of example is fully made use of day-to-day meeting of some sevak in sung or branches, bigger gathering on the occasion of the national festival and the celebration of the days of heroes and lectures, demonstration and other way inculcate courage, discipline, sense of service to society, respect of for elder and the learned, etc. This is unique system of training the young in the land in full consonance with the proved ideal and practice of Indian culture. Not a whisper of hatred of anyone is heard in the camp or routine activity of volunteer. Only the positive image of the mother country is made to occupy the entire mind and heart of the Swayam Sevak. It is our dharma to see that our society, which we considered as our great mother, is made powerful and great and happy. It is this innate love and adoration of our own people, this positive faith in our own national being that has been the constant urge for all our action. True love of that type is not dependent upon the external situation, nor it is to born out of them. It takes its root deep into our heart, reminding us of duty towards our nation every moment of our life. It makes us conscious that we belong to the great and sacred motherland, that we owe a deep debit of gratitude to her, and that every action of ours must be dedication in her cause. The thought of the present leader collected in these pages and presented in the English can be appreciated as the adoration of the mother other mind of modern Indian leadership neglected by the more prominent exotic Gandhian Congress leadership. It will be seen how full show positive, how patriotic, how practical and idealistic at the same time. The principle of the method of nation building adopted by the Sangha, it will be seen that the Sangh is the indispensable basic corrective to all other corrective effort to furnish the foundation of national reconstruction and inspiration of national regeneration on sound line. It is not sectarian but national, and its nationalism give room for all national who enter into the spirit of spiritual nationalism and patriotism in a life of social service, which defense is not the least ingredient. Readiness of service even sacred in the chief of motive to the moment. First, our world mission. Present mental complex. Hindu, the first world thought givers. The world of conflict. Theory born to root out nationalism. Failure. Example, communism in Russia. Various experiment at synthesis of nation. Failure. The dilemma. Our solution. Inner bond for human unity. Hindus alone equipped for world mission. The first step. Many people in our country today hold the view that any venture that we undertake should be board based on a grand world thought capable of rendering good to the whole of humanity, eschewing all narrow limitation of country, community, or religion. In support of this view, some proclaim that in this age of missiles and rocket, distance have vanished. The boundaries of countries have become meaningless and the world has shrunk. They therefore feel that the very concept of country, nation, etc. has become outdated, that the spirit of world unity alone should inspire all our activity. They conclude that the modernism, which has taken up internationalism as their watchword, can alone lead us to the cherished goal. Now, the question that actually poses itself before us: how far is the task reorganizing the national life for Hindus taken up by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh is conformity with the spirit of world unity and human good. The first in the field. At the very outset, let it be made clear that it is not the modern thinker who are the first in the field of think in terms of world unity and universal welfare. Long ago, in fact, long before the so-called modern age had set in, the seers and savant of this land had delved into this vital question. The ideal human unity of the world, free from all the traces of conflict and misery, has stirred our hearts since time immemorial. Our one constant prayer all through the ages has been, let everyone be happy, let everyone be free from all ills. While the present day West has not been able to go beyond the motto of the greatest good of the greatest numbers, we have never tolerated the idea of a single human being, why of even a single living organism being miserable. Total good of all being has always been our glorious ideal. Two side, but coming to the plane of the present day world, we are faced with the hard reality of all round discord and disruption ravaging human society. Today, humanity is divided and subdivided into so many small exclusive groups called nation or state, each one of them devoted to its own narrow self interest. And it is a matter of common experience that wherever there is a group inspired only by self interest, there is a bound to be mutual conflicts. Obvious human unity and welfare is impossible so long as this type of conflict continue. This present state of strife and war resulting in the human destruction and misery has led many thinkers to conclude that the sentiments of nationalism, which nourishes exclusive self interest, is the major obstacle on the way to world unity and human welfare. They therefore declare that the nationalism should be rooted out from the minds of them all over the world. Communist ideology, which claim internationalism as its sheet anchor, often talk in this train. On the other hand, there is another school of thought which hold that the root of the nationalism are so deep and long-standing that it is impossible to destroy them. Soviet Russia, which sought to be
discard nationalism is a bid to take to international communism, soon learned by experience that destruction of this sentiment deprive the people of the incentive for dedicated effort. In the first flush of the revolution, material progress was no doubt achieved in the Russia in a certain measure. Their first few 7 years plan were to an extent successful, but by and by the enthusiasm of the people began to wane. Their incentive for work began to die away. Eventually, labor in big factory had to be forced to work at the point of bayonet, and again during the Second World War, when Hitler tanks were relentlessly pressing forward on the Russian soil, the slogan of internationalism and communism failed to enthuse Russian people. They served as an eye-opener to the Russian leader who found it absolutely essential to reuse the dormant patriotic sentiment of the essential to reuse the dormant patriotic sentiment of the Russian people by invoking their age-old royalty motherland and their heroic ancestors. It is evident, therefore, that it is devotion to motherland, society, and tradition experienced under the concept of nation that inspire real service and sacrifice in the individual. The abortive experiment. We can thus conclude that nationalism cannot and should not be destroyed. Then the problem boiled down to one of the achieving a synthesis of national aspiration and world welfare. Synthesis of various kinds have been, in fact, attempted from time to time in the past. Imperialism has sometimes claimed to be one such large scale effort to eliminate conflict between smaller nations by making them limb of a single empire. But as it was basically motivated by self aggrandizement, leading to the revolt by the subject nation against their oppression and exploitation, imperialism failed to eliminate national conflict. The League of Nations, formed after the First World War, was also an experiment in avoiding war and achievement world unity. But hardly within 2 decades of its birth, the League of Nations was shattered to pieces on the rock of unbridled national ambition and consequent conflict. A more terrible war than all the previous ones besmirched the face of the earth with death and destruction. The UNO2, formed after the Second World War, is framing no better. Our own experience in the case of the Kashmir issue tell us that it is incapable of meting out the justice, of pulling off the erring member and bringing about an honorable amity among nations. It has been converted into arena of for national conflict. The powerful nation trying to dominate its forum to further their expansionistic end. The world is overcast with the dark cloud of Third World War, which may mean sudden and total end of the present civilization itself. We thus see that nations are not prepared to come together in the spirit of amity for the welfare of mankind. On the contrary, the national entity are getting more and more exclusive and their ambitions shattered day by day. Never nation are also coming up on the world stage. The entire face of the world is covered with national conflicts. In short, nationalism cannot be destroyed. All attempts to harmonize the national ambitions so far have also utterly failed, and the world is on the brink of the nuclear holocaust. Then, which way lies the salvation for the humanity? No answer to this challenge seems to be forthcoming. Thinkers all over the world are on the horns of a dilemma. The inner bond of unity. However, we Hindu have a solution to offer, but our solution is not based on materialism. All the attempt and experiment made so far were based on theory or stemming from materialism. And materialism has no answer to the very silent and fundamental question why it all should people aspire for world unity and human welfare? Why should they at all feel painted at sign of men set against men? Why should we at all love each other? From the materialistic point of view, We are all equally gross entity, each separate and exclusive in itself, who can have no bond of mutual affinity or affection. There can also be no inner restraint in such being which can make them control their selfishness from the running muck in the interest of the humanity as a whole. After all, any arrangement involved for achieving world welfare can be fruitful only to the extent the men behind it are inspired by the real love for mankind, which will enable them to mold their individual and national conduct in tune with the welfare of humanity. Without their supreme urge, any scheme, however good its intention may be, will only provide one or more alluring masks for the self-aggrandizement or power-drunk nation. Thus has been the uniform verdict of history right up to the present time. Our ancient Hindu philosopher therefore had turned their gaze to a plane higher than materialism. They delved deep into the mystery of the human soul, well beyond the reach of the material science, and discovered the ultimate reality which pervades all creation and one great common principle present in all being. Whatever the name we may give it, soul, God, truth, reality, or nothingness. It is the occasional realization of this common entity that inspires us to strive for the happiness of the others. The I in me being the same as I in the other being make me react to the joy and sorrow of my fellow living being just as I react to my own. The genuine feeling of the identity born out of the community of the inner entity is the real driving force behind our natural urge for human unity and brotherhood. Thus, it is evident that the world unity and human welfare can be made real only to the extent mankind realizes this common inner bond, which alone can subdue the passion and discord that stemming from materialism, broaden the horizon of the human mind, and harmonize the individual and national aspiration with the welfare of mankind. Right away, now we come to the second question: how will that one common substratum manifest itself in the complicated organism of human society? Will it result in a eliminated or distinctive feature of the nation and roll them all into one uniform pattern? Or will it make the various groups of people come together in the spirit of comradeship, realizing the innate honors of mankind while preserving their individual nationalism? Here again, our philosopher have unmistakably pointed out that the path of real human happiness, just as an individual, as nation, as aggregate individual, to as an individually all its own. Individual and nation are in all part of the globe have distinctive trait and features, each of them having its own place in the scheme of universe. The different human group are matching towards all towards the same goal, each in its own way and the keeping with its own genius. The destruction of the special characteristics, whether of the individual or of a group, with all we therefore not only destroy the natural beauty of harmony but also its joy of self-expression. Evolution of human life also, which is a multi-phase one, is retarded thereby. For it is a matter of common experience that it is only by developing one unique characteristic that man rises to his full structure and enjoy bliss and happiness. So, to seek harmony among the various characteristics has been our special contribution to the world thought. The off-court feature of our racial genius, that is of recognizing unity amid diversity, stem from this deep appreciation of the principle that whatever the root of human unity, human happiness, evolution, thus in short we stand for the harmonious synthesis among nation and not their obliteration. Needless to say, the idea of creative stainless condition, leveling all human beings to one particular plane of physical extensive, erasing their individual and group trait is foreign to us. The world state of our concept will therefore evolve out of the federation of autonomous and self-contained nation under the common center linking them all.